fat cat marathon training. I think one of the hardest things around training as a former strength athlete, weighing 300 plus pounds, trying to work towards that marathon, is just that first step comes back to the pain, the discomfort. It's different. And so how do you handle that discomfort, and how do you get through that first level of discomfort, right? When you get under a squat bar, or you're benching, or you're deadlifting, being a bigger dude, that's your wheelhouse. But I think the best way to think about that distance running, is to embrace it. What am I trying to do? I'm trying to run a marathon. And to set that goal, just like I want to deadlift 700 pounds. Well, you're not going to deadlift 700 pounds on day one. So you know, to embrace that discomfort, you're in for the long haul. And you just have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think it's literally that abstract approach of just deal with it. Deal with it. Feel it. Feel your ankles. Feel your hips getting tired and fatigued, your quads, even your lower back. You're out of breath. It's a different feeling, but it's still a feeling that can help you push mentally. Just like having those big time strength goals of pulling 700, benching 500, whatever that might be. So step one, enjoy being uncomfortable. So this is one that I think is a little bit harder. And I sort of learned this just by studying the GLP-1 drugs like semaglutide or tirzepatide. I noticed I was starting to feel a little weak in the weight room, right? Like benching the hundreds for 20 versus like 35. I was like, shit, man, I'm getting weak. But nutritionally, I was just crushing carbs all the time. And I think that was because like you have this like consistent, like carbs are king for distance work, which they are. I should just say that, like, stop cutting carbs. However, one of the things I was reading on Ozempic, semaglutide, is that people were losing a lot of muscle mass unless they're eating high protein. And I'm like, well, shit, I haven't really been paying attention to my protein. Maybe I should keep that up around 200 grams a day. So that helped a ton. I was just being like 2 straight weeks, 200 grams a day, no questions asked, of protein. And I noticed a lot of my aches, little pains, energy, my sleep, it all improved because I started to focus more on that protein while still getting high carbs. So I think that's just something like you just got to be aware of as you're starting to run. A third key aspect, I think, comes down to keeping track of what you're doing. I know it sounds ridiculous, but like when you're starting to lift, right? You keep track of those weights, your sets and stuff like that. One thing I didn't do was I didn't look at like my running the same way I did lifting. So like if I look at lifting percentages or something like that, like if I do 5 sets of 20 goblet squats or something, or curls, I know the weight's not going to be heavy, but I know the goal is specifically related to, you know, getting a pump or adding size or just doing structural work. And one of the things that I struggled with running early was, I only ran 10-minute miles. And then it's like, well, what was the purpose? What was the heart rate during that point? And if you start looking at heart rate work, or what your heart rate is when you're doing the work, you see a different purpose. And that sort of takes us into another level where it's like, all right, if I plan my week out and I'm aware of my heart rate work, I'm aware of my mile splits or my intensity, then one day I'd plan that long run. So I go for a real long run. That'd be like a leg day, right? One day I do plyos because I want to work on some stuff. That's my athlete day. One day, I do impulse day. That's like speed day. You go out and you run 800s or hill sprints or something. So I think it's like looking through that lens and recognizing it's important to log the miles, the intensity, and the purpose of that session. And it's okay if the purpose of that session is to just go out and get some easy work done. That's okay. On that nutrition discussion or protein discussion, quick one. This one's big time thrower, strength guys, power lifters. We would always just eat big before leg day, right? Eating a ton. And I learned real quick, don't eat a ton the night before a big run, because you're gonna be going in the woods, finding places, running home real quick. You've got to find that balance of like good energy. It's a real issue. Like, you've got to actually find that. But I think we're so used to like, oh, just overeat and you'll feel good. There's a point of diminishing returns, and you just got to be aware of that when you start off. One final thing was, when I got into lifting, it was because I was like huskier, my mom would say. I was fat. But lifting weights gave me power and control. It gave me that feeling of like, I can control something. I can do this. Kids would make fun of me for being fat. It didn't matter. And then it gave me that physical confidence of like, shit, I'm strong. I'm explosive. I can accomplish physical goals. I can be a good football player, a good wrestler, a good thrower. And I think a lot of us, you know, everybody throws around the word self-medication. I think like lifting does that. That's why it's so badass. And one thing I've noticed is like lifting still does that for me. And running, once I got comfortable with it, and once I got used to the feeling, it's like another form of therapy. You know, going to therapy, learning the skills, and like analyzing my thoughts was pivotal. And now when I'm running, a lot of my time is spent analyzing my emotions. Why am I feeling this way? What do I want for my kids? How do I want to be, you know, remembered? Stuff like that. And I think that it can really be a catalyst for another form of mental therapy and just, you know, self-time. It's time for the self to blossom and develop and to genuinely cultivate your power. Peace.